Okay, good morning. Before we get started this morning, I have a few announcements to make very quickly. The internet from last week, recall, we were getting Starlink. I've installed the dish. It's actuated and calibrated, so we do have high-speed internet now. Live streaming's on the way. We have to do a few things with our camera. I want to do some test runs first before I announce it officially, and I'll walk you guys through how to get a hold of our live streams. It seems like we're going to be live streaming via YouTube anyway, because that's where the majority of our viewers are. So I'll show you how to do the keys and all that stuff. The website, you'll notice it is coming along. There are still some dead-end links. As I fill the catalog in piece by piece, you'll see it's coming along. So I realize it is still under maintenance. But you guys should have, or if you don't have, in the meantime, a physical copy of the catalog. We can send that out to you. Just let us know. I did get some hits on the people wanting the mass downloads from Torrents and SoulSeek. So now that we have the high-speed internet, we're able to host a network-attached storage system. So that will come with the remastered the archives I'm doing right now for our digital files, and that was a question from BitChute. So I did see the comment, and we're working on that. The current NOS system that we have, the enclosure is now being dropped for support by the company that made it. So we will have to upgrade our NOS, network attached storage. But anyway, we will see what we have to do about that. Now that we have the internet, it's all going to start falling into place now. All right, so let's get started. Total eclipse of the heart. So I've been hearing a lot about this solar eclipse that's going to occur tomorrow, April the 8th. So let's take a look. And I'm going to see if I can tie it into some end-time prophecy and the book of Joel, which we've been studying anyway. Now, I realize the internet is abuzz with articles and videos concerning this event and showing parallels in the Bible. Right? And this is coming from Christians and non-Christians. There was even a TED Talks on it, recall? So, but I've yet to hear one from a kingdom perspective. Now, just this morning, someone gave me Stephen Jones' work on the apocalypse, or Eclipse. This was not the apocalypse. Hold your horses. Right, Eclipse. So I did just get this. I scanned it briefly, but that's about all I've heard from anyone in our circle, in our kingdom circle, all right? So I'm going to try to tie in this eclipse from a kingdom perspective, the house of Israel and Judah as we know them, okay? So first of all, I know we're going to do a little bit here. What is a solar eclipse? Okay, a solar eclipse occurs when the moon passes between Earth and the sun, thereby obscuring the view of the sun from a small part of the Earth, totally or partially. I'm sure you guys all remember this from 5th grade science. And you'll notice here that the shadow cast during a lunar or solar eclipse is curved. Curved. Okay, and this is just a side note to illustrate something. Someone once asked me if I thought the earth was flat, and I said, why would I think that? During an eclipse, the shadow cast is curved. All right? That statement alone will trigger some people, I know, but I can show you these things with a styrofoam ball and a flashlight. And we can do that little side experiment if you like. Most people who argue for flat earth will outright deny the existence of science or ignore it. Now, I have to explain the fact that the sun sets at different times in different directions and hemispheres. The length of shadows changes. I have to explain what a circumpolar star is, how clouds are illuminated from their underside during a sunset, and how the poles have days or weeks of light or darkness, all attesting to the fact of a sphere. But if science is just another word for conspiracy, and if your 5th grade teacher was in cahoots with NASA or the Illuminati, then what about an oblate spheroid instead of round? Because technically that's what the earth is. So it's not so much that the science class or that your science or that you were asleep in science, it's the fact that you probably just slept through geometry. So if you understand geometry, the flat earth thing goes out. And it's not so much of a cover-up after all. Anyway, if science and math is witchcraft, here's 3 things you can do on your own as a matter of observable realities very quickly. The cheapest is to grab a good spotting scope or binoculars, go to a port with a lot of big sailing ships, and then watch the keel disappear before the mast. There's one you can try on your own. Let me know how it works out for you. Medium cheap. Go to any store. Here's Amazon. Go grab a sextant. It's an ancient nautical device, all right? Go grab that. Then get to a place where a mountain isn't too far from the sea. Measure at the bottom of the mountain to the sea. Then do a little bit of climbing. And measure the top. Okay, do those two measurements with this sextant. You can do this on your own. And you're going to come up with something like this. Now you remember trigonometry and trigonometry 2. Okay, remember? So we're going to calculate this. And of course, with the center of the earth, we're going to come up with the right triangle. Right? So with the right triangle, then remember the law of sines, because it is a triangle. Once you do this, you'll find the radius of the earth. Using this method in a sextant, you'll have a 1% error of margin on the earth's diameter. Very easy. Now, there was a guy that actually did this, and that was Eratosthenes. Okay, he was a Greek mathematician, geographer, poet, astronomer, and musical theorist. Actually, technically, he's a polymath then, if you think about that. And basically what he did is he just did what I showed you to do with the sextant, except he had men walk between the city of Alexandria and the city of Syene, which is current day Aswan, a southern city in Egypt. So that's how he got the line here. He actually walked it out. But if we use a sextant, like I said today, it'll save you the walking between two Egyptian cities. But the result is the same. Now the third option, and it's the most expensive, is you can actually go and buy a ticket to be put on the next available SpaceX mission and take a picture yourself. I will warn you, the price for the ticket is $60 million, and to stay aboard the space station up there is $35,000 a night. So if you really want to see the Earth, you want to take a picture, we'll take up a love offering for you and send you to space. You just make sure I go with you. Anyway, where were we? Oh yeah, the eclipse. Now you see how much time I wasted talking about the shape of the earth? It would have been better spent instructing national Israel in the law and the prophets, right? Which is why the shape of the earth is a non-issue to me. Absolutely. Just a little side note, because this does come up when you talk about eclipses and such. The shadow cast is round. Anyway, being that it's nothing to do with the law and the prophets, it doesn't have a bearing on the important things where the boots are on the ground here. Right. Anyway, now with the eclipse, there are a myriad of theories and assumptions being put out there. And I suppose the ones that actually interest us are the ones that implicate Bible scriptures or Bible prophecy, because we've been hearing all about it. Right? So we're going to look at three theories this morning. Number one is the Goliath theory. Have you guys heard about this one? Okay, the Goliath theory. Now you've seen this chart, right? It's all over the news. Everybody's seen it. So the red stripe here represents the solar eclipse of 2017. The blue stripe, of course, represents tomorrow's proposed solar eclipse path. Okay, and this path is where the total solar eclipse would be observable from. Okay, all right. So and this, by the way, the crossing of these has never been seen in America ever before. So that is remarkable. I'll give you that. Now, the place where these cross over is a town in Illinois called Makanda. Makanda, okay? So next to that town is a state park called Giant City State Park. Okay, now the theory claims that because it's crossing over this Giant City State Park, then the entire eclipse is one big cover-up. Okay, the plot thickens. And the mysterious powers that be have orchestrated this eclipse so that they can go in and remove skeletons of giant humanoid Goliath-like people that are apparently buried in this state park. All right. They also say that the fact that the National Weather Service has been predicting heavy cloud cover over this area since February puts force behind their theory. You see, because since when do meteorologists forecast 2 months in advance? So they say, don't shoot the messenger. Now, I know it's a rather interesting prediction, but surprise, surprise, they use the book of Enoch to back it all up. Okay. Number 2. Now, I only mention these because they're trending, okay? Number 2 is this woman here has been coming up a lot, and she is trending on Reddit and other social networks, even SpaceX or X or Twitter or whatever. Anna Maria Taigi from 1769, died in 1837. She was actually beatified. Beatified? Okay, so basically the Pope gave her special burial rights, ensuring her passage into heaven. And being beatified means that you can pray in her name and she will intercede for you. So she's a saint. That's why if you see the names of the Catholic saints and it says BL or blessed, that means they've been beatified. Okay? So she made a prediction that the earth would be darkened for 3 days, and during that time all the world's unbelievers would perish. Okay? That's the prediction, and that's what they're saying the eclipse implicates, okay, being that the unbelievers would perish. Now, I'm not sure what unbeliever means. I'm fairly certain that if she's Catholic, it means all non-Catholics. That's usually what they mean. Personally, the prediction isn't worth entertaining whatsoever, because the Bible does not say anywhere about the earth being in darkness for 3 days, nor does it have anything to do with during that time of darkness, non-believers would perish or disappear. You see, it doesn't say that. Not a word. So don't be taken in by this theory. Now, the Bible does speak of the punishment of unbelievers, but only after the return of Christ, not because of a solar eclipse. Okay, let's get that straight. All right, the final theory. Now, this one's gained the most traction. The Jonah theory. Okay, so to understand the Jonah theory, we have to understand a little bit of Bible history. So we've got Jeroboam the second, okay? That's Jeroboam the second, not Jeroboam the first. He was son of Nebat, recall? Okay, so Jeroboam the second is mentioned in, he's son and successor of Jehoash or Joash, spelling differs, 13th king of the northern kingdom of Israel from 786 to 746 BC. That's not BCE, that's BC. Okay, now, he's also mentioned in 2 Kings, 1 Chronicles, Hosea, and Amos. That's where this king is mentioned, and we'll look at one of those verses here in a second. Now, during this reign, a solar eclipse occurred in Syria, known as the Assyrian eclipse. Okay? So the Assyrian eclipse, or the Bur-Sagal eclipse. You guys heard about this? No? Okay, yep, some of you, okay. During the 10th year of the reign of King Ashur-dan III, that's the Assyrian king. Okay, Ashur, we know that from our Bible history. The eclipse is identified with the one that occurred on 15 June 763 BC in the Julian calendar. So we see that this eclipse occurred during the reign of Jeroboam II, okay, in Assyria. Now, we can verify that if we go to, we also need to know one more piece. You're like, well, what about Jonah? Where's Jonah coming in? Let's go to 2 Kings 14, verse 23. In the 15th year of Amaziah, the son of Joash, king of Judah, Jeroboam, the son of Joash, king of Israel, began to reign in Samaria and reigned 41 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not from all the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. He restored the coast of Israel from the entering of Hamath unto the sea of the plain, according to the word of the Lord God of Israel, which he spake by the hand of his servant Jonah, the son of Amittai, the prophet, which was of Gath-Hepher. Okay, so what that is telling us is that Jonah, the prophet, was alive and prophesying during the reign of Jeroboam II. Okay, so that verse ties in. Jeroboam II, Jonah was a contemporary then. Okay, so now it's been speculated that the Assyrian eclipse took place around the time that Jonah entered Nineveh and gave his word to the Assyrian people in order that they would repent. Otherwise, the city would be destroyed. You guys know the story. Okay, so the eclipse, that's how the eclipse ties in. And because this eclipse supposedly occurred during the time of Jonah in his preaching. They say that the eclipse was the catalyst that put force into Jonah's declaration, and that led to the repentance of the people of Nineveh. You see, so that was the great sign that backed Jonah up, okay? And I'm sure you guys all know the story of Jonah, all right? However, I believe that the reason Jonah, now this is theoretical. We're not reading about this in the Bible. This is, if you want to check it out, the noted Bible archaeologist Donald J. Wiseman theorized this. Remember Rawlinson, who we did last, the 7 Great Monarchies? He has a different date. Anyway, this theory has gained traction because Jonah and the Jonah theory, and now we tied Jonah into the Assyrian eclipse, okay? But the reason why Jonah's words carried so much weight to the Assyrians was not necessarily because some eclipse or another happened. Because if you look at this, Dagon was the principal god in one of the principal deities in Assyria. And according to the mythology, Dagon was the father of Baal. He was also the god of grain, bounty, and fertility. So it's the old fertility cult once again. Now, and you see he's half man, half fish. See, Dagon's also the name of remember the god in the Palestinian lands that kept falling over in front of the ark? Same guy, different land. Right? Philistines. Yes, Philistines, yeah. Yeah, they put it in the temple and then right, the same way, same guy. So now if your god is Dagon, the fish man, and one day a huge fish regurgitates a man on the beach, do you think you would at least hear him out? Plus, maybe there's a solar eclipse going on. So no wonder Jonah caused such a citywide repentance, right? A lot of Christians bemoan the story of Jonah, saying that they can't believe that God is going to save non-Israelites. And really, it's not so much that the Assyrians were non-Israelites as much as they were pagan Israelites. But nobody wants to say that there are non-practicing Christian Israelites back then and now. I don't know why. But if you follow up Jonah with the book of Habakkuk, you'll see that the Assyrians didn't stick to their convictions, and the city was leveled. So everybody leaves out Habakkuk. That's the last part of Jonah. So yes, Jonah went, preached to them. They turned for a short time, not wholeheartedly, and then you read the prophet Habakkuk, and it's all about the city getting leveled. So that's it. So were they Israelites or not? I don't know. Did it save them? No. God leveled them. So I guess it rains on the Israelite and non-Israelite alike. Right? It's not popular preaching to the Israel-only crowd, but a sinful and God-rejecting Israelite population exists, and that's a matter of observable reality. Anyway, the Jonah theory. Okay, so apparently an eclipse occurred in Jonah's day, and now we have an eclipse occurring tomorrow in our day, but how are people linking these two things? So several cities in the U.S. are named Nineveh, that the proposed path of the eclipse is traveling tomorrow. Okay, and you'll see this one I grabbed off of online. They've got Jonah, Texas, Nineveh, Rapture, Illinois, or Indiana, Nineveh. Also the Ark over here in Williamston, Kentucky. I don't know how they found the Ark, or have they. Don't go to Williamston and try to find the Ark of the Covenant, because if you understand Bible prophecy, when that makes an appearance, it's the end of the age. Don't dig it up yet. So, several cities in the U.S. named Nineveh will be very close to where the eclipse will be seen. They also say that the X symbol here is also significant of a Hebrew symbol, tau, meaning sign, symbol, signature, or mark. Remember that word ensign in end-time prophecy, that kind of thing. All right, so we have Jonah, we've got Nineveh. We'll toss the rapture one out, as we always do. And then we've got this sign. And then what do you know? The next thing people bring up, and you've all heard it this week, Matthew 12. 39, but he answered and said unto them, an evil and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall be no sign given to it, but the sign of the prophet Jonah. And that's where everybody says, see, everything is lining up. It's the whale, it's the Nineveh, it's Jonah, it's the Assyrian eclipse. And then Jesus mentions Jonah as an end-time prophecy. So they tie all this together with this verse to say tomorrow's eclipse is a sign of the end of the age, you see. So because of all this, people are saying that this eclipse could be the catalyst to many end-time events. Others have even said that it's going to usher in Christ's return. Okay, that's what's being thrown around right now. It's even made the news. Oh yes, ushering in not only Christ's return, but the rapture, of course. So tomorrow a bunch of people are expecting to leave planet Earth. Now, let's see if we can make sense of all this, okay? So let's give this to a kingdom minister and see what's going on, really. Okay, first, let's read Matthew 12, only this time let's not take it out of context, okay? Matthew 12, we're going to start verse 38, because we don't want to fall into the out-of-context trap. Then certain of the scribes and Pharisees, Jesus' enemies, right, answered, saying, Master, we would see a sign from thee. But he answered and said unto them, An evil and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall be no sign given to it, but the sign of the prophet Jonah, for as Jonah was, but as the sign of the prophet Jonah. Right? Verse 40. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so will the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. The men of Nineveh shall rise in judgment with this generation, and shall condemn it, because they repented at the preaching of Jonah, and behold, a greater than Jonah is here. All right, so there's the verse everybody's picking on, verse 39, but when we read all the way to 41, we have a better understanding of what's going on. First of all, Jesus says nothing about solar or lunar eclipses in this passage, does he? Not a word about them. And notice, like I said, he is preaching to his enemies, just as Jonah did. There's one. Now, the whole statement here is Jesus telling them that he is a prophet. Jesus was a prophet, like unto Moses, that Jesus the prophet is greater than Jonah the prophet. And he knew they were familiar with him. And that after 3 days and 3 nights, he will return from the grave. Okay. That's all he's saying. No need to implicate end-time solar eclipses. There's nothing in that verse that says anything about that. But so if it's not the solar eclipse that's the sign of the prophet Jonah, then what is? Jesus' return from death. That's the sign of Jonah, the 3 days and 3 nights. That's the operative phrase in this passage. The sign of Jonah was Christ's return from the grave. Not a consolation, not a whale or fish, not an Assyrian apocalypse or eclipse or end of the world scenario. Now, and I will say this very seriously, Jesus Christ really did warn us about date setting and counting the future. Matthew 24:36. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Right? So the future, it seems, belongs to God alone. We are not to look into the future. Now, there are very few things, in my opinion, that absolutely ruin our testimony of Christians than when people set dates and get them totally wrong. Now look at what else Jesus says. Matthew 24:44. Therefore you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. That's what he said. That's the ESV. Now, the eclipse is fairly well known, right? Not a one of you hasn't heard about it. Not a one of you has heard that in light of this eclipse, people are expecting Jesus' return. That should put your mind at ease right there. Jesus is not about to come back when everybody thinks it's going to be tomorrow. Jesus said it will be when you do not expect it. Right? Like a thief in the night. So why then do people insist that this eclipse is heralding Christ's return? Well, they say there's far too many coincidences, like the Nineveh cities, the Hebrew symbols for mark and sign, words like Salem, I've heard that one, not to mention the whale constellation, known as Cetus. If you know your Latin, that makes sense, because it'll be passing through the Cetus constellation, which is whale. I must remind you, Jonah was not a whale. It was not a whale, it was a fish. Could have been a whale shark. It's the largest fish on earth. Whale's the largest sea-dwelling mammal, by the way, not to split hairs. But anyway, so what do we do with this? Well, I suggest that we are like Bereans and search the scriptures. Right? So let's do that. Peter says we have the more sure word of prophecy, so let's look at some prophecy. Last week we're in Joel. Let's start there. In Joel 2, and we went through chapter 1, Joel 2, we see that God has sent in an army into the land of Israel as punishment. Okay, and Joel chapter 2, verse 10 says, the earth shall quake before them, that great army he sent in. Remember the locusts, caterpillars, cankerworms, remember from last week? The heavens shall tremble. Now when you see heavens trembling, shaking, pay attention to that word shaking in the King James. You'll see this a lot. What here that men have set up on earth will be turned upside down, undermined, destroyed, rendered useless. The heavens. So what's that mean, Pastor Reed? The governments on earth shall tremble. Okay, we'll get to this as we go along. The sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. Now we've heard that verse this week too, haven't we? Everybody's throwing that verse around. So here we have this verse, which is being constantly brought up in light of this eclipse. The problem with this, I don't think it's apocalypse. The problem with this is that none of these lights actually go out during an eclipse. Okay, we're back to science. The sun doesn't literally put out during an eclipse. You guys know that. Stars are still up there too. And the moon's just doing its thing. Okay, so the lights aren't really out. So why you'd bring that up, I don't know. But if Jesus told us, but Jesus did tell us though, that there would be seasons and signs for us to discern. Did he not? He told us. And if this verse isn't about the physical sun, moon, and stars, then what does it mean? It's got to be the eclipse, Pastor Reed. I mean, look at it. Plus, we've heard the reports of cicadas or locusts coming out and appearing in the billions tomorrow. You guys heard that? And April 8th is definitely the book of Joel. I mean, it's certainly looking pretty end-timesy, isn't it? And it goes right along. We got locusts, we got the moon disappearing, the sun going out, we got people in the land, earthquakes, right? It's got to be the book of Joel. Well, no. This is a prophecy. And as such, it's symbolic, just as the insects were from chapter 1. No need to switch gears. So, the insects from chapter 1 were who? Strangers being brought in to rob, plunder, and pillage Israel and its resources, right? Then we've got the sun, moon, and stars all of a sudden going out, which can't happen unless the Abrahamic covenant is over. You guys understand that one, right? Remember that? As long as the moon and the sun are up there, the Abrahamic covenant is still in effect. That's what he said. So, the sun, moon, and stars must be something else then. Let's check this out. And I know you guys know this. This may be a review for you, but we do have a lot of young, new listeners. So let's go to Genesis 37, verse 9. And he, Joseph, of course, dreamed yet another dream and told it to his brethren, the other sons of Jacob Israel, and said, behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father, Jacob, and to his brethren. And his father rebuked him and said unto him, what is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Surely I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee on the earth. Immediately, Joseph's father Jacob identified the sun, moon, and stars with the 12 tribes of Israel. So, and Jacob himself was no stranger to dreams, was he? He paid attention. It even says later, his father kept it in mind. This dream by young Joseph. Okay? The passage relates here then that the sun, moon, and stars are the whole house of Israel. Okay? So let's take that knowledge now and apply it to a little bit of end-time prophecy. Isaiah 13, verse 9. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh. Okay, so this is obviously end-time prophecy. Cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate. That's exactly what Joel was saying. And he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. So there will be a removal of the sinners from the land, not a rapture of the godly saints that turns upside down the rapture doctrine immediately. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. And I will punish the world for their evil. That word there, world, means Babylon. Babylon, which immediately parallels this to every end-time prophecy from Daniel to Revelation. And I will punish Babylon, or the world, man's government, man's system, the beast system, for their evil, and the wicked for their iniquity. I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease, and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. If you understand Micah 5, that's exactly what Micah says. The haughtiness of man will be made low. Right? Remember that? End-time prophecy once again. And they get rid of their silver and gold, throw it into the moles and to the bats. So this is a time when gold means nothing. It will not save you. When? Day of the Lord. Who can abide it, right? Okay. So this passage relates, once again, that the sun, moon, and stars will be darkened with the day of the Lord, or Christ's return. We understand that's the beginning of the kingdom. Now, this also sounds like what we were reading in Joel last week, does it not? Let's go to another verse, chapter in Isaiah. Isaiah 24. Okay, I'll read these. Isaiah 24, I'll read verse 3, just to get an idea of what's going on. I'll read verse 1 as well. Behold, the Lord maketh the earth empty, and maketh it waste, and turneth it upside down. Okay, just like we were saying, it's going to be a reversal of the power of man to God. Turneth it upside down, and scoureth abroad the inhabitants thereof. Once again, end-time prophecy concerning the day of the Lord. Verse 3, the land shall be utterly emptied and utterly spoiled. Word there means robbed, for the Lord has spoken this word. Again, what we were reading in Joel. Look at verse 29. I'm sorry. Verse 11. It's looking too far in my notes. We're at verse 3, verse 11. There is crying for wine in the streets. All joy is darkened, and the mirth of the land is gone. Okay, again what we read in Joel, remember? The drunkards have no wine. They were crying out for it. 19. The earth is utterly broken down. The earth is clean dissolved. The earth is moved exceedingly. There's that shaking again. The earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, and shall be removed like a cottage, and the transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it, and it shall fall and not rise again. So God is going to do something with man's current system, the shaking of the earth. And it shall come to pass in that day, day of the Lord, that the Lord shall punish the host of the high ones that are on high, civil rulers who run the new world order, the beast system of Babylon. Also, if we go to Revelation 6, you'll see the four horses of the apocalypse. One of them is red, Esau, Edom. This is a parallel prophecy to that, by the way. And the kings of the earth upon the earth. So he's going to punish the high ones and the kings of the earth. Man's government. Mystery Babylon, the economic, political, and military world power, will cease. This is Revelation. And they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered in the pit, and they shall be shut up in the prison, and after many days they shall be visited, punished. Once again, we know this to be kingdom prophecy. Then the moon shall be confounded, and the sun ashamed, when the Lord of hosts shall reign in Mount Zion, and in Jerusalem, and before his ancients gloriously. Obviously, kingdom language. Ancients, of course, is his elders. I like to think that's his overcomers who will sit there with him, just as Revelation relates, just as Christ related. So, we've got this end-time prophecy between the time of trouble, which is what we were reading about in Joel, and the kingdom. We again find the sun, moon, and stars being dimmed. Here it only says sun and moon, but it runs right along with the other prophecies we've been saying from the same book. So Jesus mentioned this 3 times in the Gospels. We're just going to pull one from that. Go to Matthew 24, and I'll read verse 3 before I read the other one. 24, verse 3. And he sat upon the Mount of Olives. The disciples came to him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? That word world there means age, eon, okay? What is the sign of the end of the age? Now go to verse 24, and we see, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. Once again, Jesus is quoting his holy prophets. He's talking about the sun, moon, and stars growing dim, and the governments of the world being taken apart, dismantled, losing their power. This is again kingdom age, end time prophecy, because we see it's the same message from the prophets. It's the same thing. No reason to think Jesus would disagree with his own prophets, right? So you'll notice that, like I said, Jesus' words in Matthew and the other Gospels do parallel exactly what the prophets said. So, we're not looking for lights going out, or whales, or locusts, or if we're looking for signs having to do with the house of Israel. That's what we're looking for. Now, if America Zion is the Bible of prophecy, if America is the Zion of Bible prophecy, where we find, living in this land, the regathered children of Israel. Also, I think that it's very interesting that all of this eclipse and talk of the eclipse and stuff focuses on just America. Does anyone else notice this? Not a word about Israel or Palestine. Yes, it's sad what's going on, but this eclipse is all focused on America because the 2 eclipses only happened in this land. Now, I thought all this was supposed to happen to God's children over there in the Promised Land. Why is everybody talking about the American eclipse, the American Nineveh, the American Zion, the American locusts? Not a word about Palestine. Isn't that interesting? They're right there. Right there. That's good and bad. I applaud Christians for seeking signs, just as Christ told us to do at the end of the age, to see these things and discern the seasons. Right? I see that. They're way off. Well, like I said, it's interesting. No one's mentioning Israel and the chosen people over there as not a word about them all week long. All right, so anyway, we're not hearing about Palestine's eclipse or their locusts. Joel is dead wrong if Palestine's that land. So is Jesus. Now, I thought Jesus was only concerned with those people in that land, Jerusalem. I thought they were his chosen people. Anyway. Now, if the sun, moon, and stars are symbolic of us, then what? What does any of this mean, Pastor Reed? Well, the dimming of their light is indicative of Israel in this land today turning to sin and iniquity at the end of the age. That's what unlocks those end-time prophecies. The losing of Christianity in this land is the losing of the light in this land. And if Israelites are the sun, moon, and stars, then we have Israelites turning from God to sin, man's ways, which he promises us in the prophets will be done away with. Then we will turn and see Christ only as the God of heaven and earth. That's the story of the Bible. And it's only Israel. Blow ye the trumpet where? In Zion. In Zion. Now, this is what's happening to this country and this people in this age. And we read about Joel. It's like today's newspapers. We see these things. That's what the prophets and Christ described. Exactly what's happening to us. The false religion, the deception, the wealth and resources being diminished and taken from us, and the land being overrun with strangers and sin. That's the message of the prophets for the 20th century, 21st century, which we've seen in our lifetimes. And it's only gotten worse. Our light and our glory has all but been put out. In front of all of the nations, Israel's been brought low, just like he said it would happen. You cannot understand this without the proper identification of the children of Israel, the house of Judah, and Zion, America. So the prophets spoke of us turning away from God, the light of Christ, and in so doing, being weakened and left destitute. Remember Hosea. Israel will come to a place that they're brought down so low, they'll have no choice but to turn from God. And we'll do that as a people. We'll do that as a people. That happens after Bible prophecy, not a solar eclipse. Not a solar eclipse. Now you can both, when you go to watch the eclipse tomorrow, you can observe both the eclipse and the shadow of sin in this land. That's what you're looking for because that's what's here. All right, so what do we do? Well, Christ says he will return when no one else expects. So all these people theorizing about it being tomorrow makes their claims very unlikely, given the fact that many are expecting him to return tomorrow. So relax a little bit. The Bible teaches the complete opposite. Also, and I thought this was fairly interesting, you'll get a kick out of this. Did you ever notice that the churches that make the apocalypse claims, the eclipse claims, the eclipse is the end of the age claims, you ever notice this? All these end of the world scenarios they're giving us all week long. And at the end of all their videos, they all have invitations at the end of the broadcast for you to send in tithes or to subscribe to their newsletter or their channels. I even heard a guy talk about the end of the age, and then he turned right around and told me in a couple of months they're planning to take a tour of the Holy Land. Now, if they really believe Christ is going to return tomorrow and it'll be all over, then why ask for the money? Right? Mammon, profit, another sign of the times, really. Makes me skeptical about their ministries, and I actually question their motives. You see what I'm saying? The sign of Jonah was Christ's resurrection, and if you don't believe that, what other sign do you need? That's the whole thing. It's wicked that Jesus said, there will be a sign that I am who I say I am, the Son of God, when I arise from the tomb on the third day. If you don't believe that, you'll ask for another sign, and that makes you a non-believer. What else do you need except the knowledge and faith that Christ rose? So I ask you this, as the song goes, is there a total eclipse of your heart then? Is doubt and fear blocking the light in your life? The absence of the sun is indeed darkness. And the darkness is what's plaguing our land and our people. The absence of the Son of God. As you watch the eclipse tomorrow, keep these things in mind that I've said today. And our actions have brought a shadow upon us, and it has caused us to be brought low. And only when the nation turns back to Christ and his government is when we'll walk again in the light. That's all I have for today.